What unsolved murder are you sure you have the answer to, and what is the answer? My mom's murder. The guy who did it killed himself when he discovered the police were investigating him. Pretty sure David Miscavige, leader of the Church of Scientology, killed his wife and covered it up, hence why she hasn't been seen since 2007. O.J. Simpson did it. There's a cold case of a murder in small-town Ontario in the 80s. The person killed was the mom of one of my dad's friends when he was in high school. A few days before the murder, my dad was riding his dirt bike on some back trails to this guy's house when he encountered a strange man about 100 feet forward on the trail. This was very close to the house. The man was a large, scary biker-type dude. He waved my dad to come to him, but when he refused, he ran at my dad very aggressively. My dad spun around and never saw him again. A few days later, his friend's mom was murdered in that same house. The guy was most likely scoping the place and likely would have killed my dad for seeing him if he had the chance. I've tried to get my dad to come forward, but he thinks it's futile. Edit. I do think he should go to the police, but he isn't interested because it was approximately 35 years ago and he claims not to remember the guy too well. Any suggestions to convince him are welcome. Please message me. Edit 2. I won't be sharing any further details on the murder, especially the location. It hits a little too close to home and I don't want any retired murderers showing up at my front door. Terry Hobbs killed those 3 boys in the West Memphis 3 murders. Lizzie Borden killed her parents. I'm very much on the side her father was incredibly abusive and this was her only means of escape. Her stepmom probably knew about it and Lizzie always had a strained relationship with her anyway. John Lawrence was murdered by his fellow South Carolinians and it was passed off as a death in a useless skirmish after the war had already been won. If anyone watched the new Unsolved Mysteries that aired on Netflix a few months ago, the second episode about Patrice Enders pissed me off. You're telling me the husband didn't kill her? Seriously? He kicked her son out and changed the locks to her house the day she went missing, not when she was found like 2 years later. Who does that, unless you know she's never coming back? Seriously, watch the episode and try to tell me he didn't have some sort of part in it, even if it was just hiring someone else to do it Fargo style. Tupac was killed by Orlando Anderson. The Black Dahlia. A lot of evidence points to a degenerate named George Hodel. He was a physician and also a horrible person. So it lines up pretty well in my eyes. Patrice Enders' husband killed her. The way he talks about her like she was an object that he owned. And no innocent person changes the locks on their doors within 24 hours of their spouse going missing. Lady in my hometown went missing after dropping her middle school-age children off at home and leaving again. She just didn't come back. We all thought her going through a divorce. Husband killed her because he lawyered up and refused to let the police search his computer or his lake house. Months go by. No trace. Someone notices one day that a large landscaping rock on the edge of the mountain is missing and then reports it stolen. The same time someone else tells the tip line that they saw a lady in Jeep matching her description trying to turn around by the rock, months ago. The investigators follow the path of where the rock would have rolled down the mountain and find the rock. Then a little ahead, the missing lady and her purse laying there. Then several yards down, her Jeep crashed into a tree. It was extremely sad case. Not a human murder, but on Tiger King, the person who broke in and set fire to that building killing the alligators was 100% his general manager. The CCTV footage showed the way the man walked after setting the fire and there was a clear limp on the same leg that guy had a prosthetic. Well, my sister died at the hands of an abusive boyfriend in November 2013 in Iowa. She was shot. I was home when the police showed up to deliver the news. My sister was terrified of guns and even made anti-gun artwork in high school. There's absolutely no way she shot herself. My mom has a bag of evidence, but I'm much too scared to look in that. The cops let the boyfriend go. A year or two later, my mom's school, she's an elementary school teacher, got put on lockdown because he made threats about shooting the place up. Apparently he's in Tennessee now, probably beating more women. I'd love to get some revenge on that loser. That my second cousin was killed by his stepdad. There's no way in hell that a 15-year-old, with his backpack on and getting ready to leave for school, could have shot himself in the chest with a shotgun that he would have had to have used his toes to pull the trigger on. Fucking dumbass police ruled it a suicide, even after several family members pointed out their stupidity, and the fact that his stepdad hated my cousin's guts and constantly threatened his life. Miss Ya, Jamie, one day that bastard will get his due. I think JonBenet Ramsey was accidentally killed by an immediate family member, which was then covered up by the rest of the family. Hence, the oddly specific ransom note. It's possible the same person was molesting her as well. It was the Charles Lindbergh Jr. kidnapping. I learned about this case in school when we were doing a mock trial unit in 8th grade. The person who was accused, named Bruno Richard Hauptmann, was found guilty and executed, but the trial seemed very fishy. I went looking more in depth about it and thought of a hypothesis that it was Isidore Fish, Bruno's friend, and Charles Lindbergh was an accomplice. Robert Wagner killed Natalie Wood, 100%. Susan Powell, her husband killed her. Josh Powell's father and brother had more to do with the disappearance of Susan Powell. Dad was a creep around her, and they found a whole mess of child pornography on his hard drives. The brother eventually committed suicide. There's more to this story than we know, and sadly more than we ever may find out. New Orleans axe murderer had to have been mob-related, because they largely targeted Italian Americans living in the area. Casey Anthony killed her daughter for attention, but due to the ineptitude of the Florida prosecution and the jury, she got away with murder. I truly believe Jack the Ripper was Frederick Bailey Deeming. One time when I was a kid, 9-ish, I was in the woods and found a gun wrapped in burlap right next to a pond on our hunting lease. I gave it to my dad and he never turned it in and instead just kept it and sold it for drugs. Petty positive that could have solved a murder case. Sorry if it's worded bad. I've been up for the past 2 days and can hardly focus. RN, but I just had to say this. My aunt was murdered by her boyfriend and made to look like a suicide. I'm absolutely certain of it, but will never be able to prove it without a confession, as the police are not interested in following it up. I worked a Walmart. There was a door grader, pre-COVID, that was very elderly. The sweetest woman ever. One day this P.O.S. car pusher used a cart mule, the big red thing they push carts with, and accidentally hit her with it, and knocked her over. She got up and dusted it off after a bit. Mind you, she was very frail and very old. A few days later she passed away. There is nothing you could say to convince me that he didn't inadvertently kill her. I think Sonny Bono was killed in a mob hit, and ruled a ski accident. The Zodiac Killer was probably a police officer or at one time worked in law enforcement. They were way too cocky to have been a normal citizen. The symbol of the Zodiac Killer is a crosshair. Officers have to do a lot of shooting practice, and he could have purposefully misled the investigation by connecting unrelated murders. That or the killer was not actually one person but multiple people. Epstein. He was killed by D. Kind of the opposite, but I have a very firm belief that Carol Baskin didn't kill her husband. I don't really have any answers to any specific case, especially seeing as I already forgot which episode of Unsolved Mysteries it was, but a while back I was watching it, and then at the end of the story they posted a mugshot of the culprit, who's still at large. It gave me pause to see his face, because he looked exactly like the sweet old man who lived on the floor below our apartment. That guy moved away about a month ago, but, well, I'm gonna hope it was just a coincidence. It's an ongoing joke in my family that my grandma killed Jimmy Hoffa, starting to think she did. Pretty sure OJ killed 2 people and largely got away with it. JonBenet Ramsey. It was her brother. Guys, edit. Sorry for starting a whole war. Reddit loudly crying. Kyron Horman's stepmother knows where he is. Video. It clearly killed the radio star. John Mulaney 100% killed Princess Diana. Elliot Smith's girlfriend did it. I mean, it's pretty obvious. They were having an argument and she went to go take a shower. When she was done she Found him with 2 stab wounds to the chest and the knife was still in his chest. The cops found a suicide note written on a post-it note that said, "I'm so sorry love, may God forgive me." Like, I'm honestly wondering how dim-witted the detectives in that case were.